Where do I sit? Hello and welcome to another week here at the studio. So last time you were with us, we were testing some mini tin candles and I have managed to do some test burns of most of them. As you can see, this is the tomato one. We have burnt it a bit, to varying degrees of success depending on the scent. Some of them burnt okay, others didn't really have much of a scent, some didn't have good flames. It was a mixed bag. I haven't fully gone through and evaluated which ones to go for, but interesting experiment. Other than that, honestly, I feel like I have not moved much in terms of stuff we need to get done for September's fair. I had to place an order of wax, so that has been a bit delayed. Another thing I've been hoping to do is start working on my silicone mold making. When I first started my test run of selling candles, I was actually selling them in glass jars. The idea was that I wanted to sell candle refills to go along with it because it just felt very wasteful to be throwing away jars each time you want to use a candle. One thing I learned throughout this process of looking for jars and stuff is that you want to make sure that the jar is going to last you, especially if you're going to commit to doing refills for them, because glass in itself is already pretty fragile. And to add on heat stress, this is like all the things I learned through that process. It can potentially get more and more prone to cracking, especially if they are like tiny chips and things. All of that meant that I didn't feel very comfortable proceeding with that, especially because the supplier I was trying to work with didn't want to give me assurance of that being an appropriate use case for their jars. So that led me down to what we're going to be focusing on today, which is that we are going to be trying to make some of our own jars. This was a very long-winded process that is still honestly not quite complete. I have been trying out, here are some examples. Sneaky peek of jars. I tried out making some jars using kind of pre-made molds. I didn't have the best of luck with them because they were either too big, too chunky, or I ran into issues where they were like slanted. And we don't want to be selling things like that. So I kind of decided to try and learn 3D modeling to create the jar from scratch. I've always wanted to kind of learn 3D modeling. The problem is that if you've ever tried free platforms like Blender, okay, at least for me, it wasn't something I could intuitively pick up, just as it's not intuitive to say that word. So even though I wanted to use Blender to create things like custom content objects for games like Sims, I never got around to actually doing it. This jar making process was kind of the best reason I had to kind of give myself a chance to learn it. And we did come up with it. And then we stumbled into the world of 3D modeling and that led to things like these. These are master object jars that I previously made. I'm sorry, I'm on manual focus. I don't want to change the settings. And I thought that was good. I was like, whoa, I created an object from scratch. How lovely. This is all gonna go swimmingly. No, it wasn't that simple. Basically, what happened with the type of printing I chose and the printer that I chose to go for was that the objects were not exactly perfect. So in both of the examples, there were uneven lips, so it made the jar look like it was wonky, so that wasn't good. And then the bases as well were not like directly upright either. So when you add the two together, it made it look very wonky, and overall when I started making it, it didn't quite work out. I did get a chance to try out the silicone mold making process, so this is one of the better ones that I ended up with. The problem was, with silicone making, bubbles are a big thing. And you want to make sure that you get rid of all the bubbles, especially against the surface of whatever object you're trying to make. Because if you don't do that, it's going to show up on the object that you cast. And I was having a lot of issues making that without the proper equipment. So I tried. There are a good 10 of these molds somewhere. And it's a very long-winded process because with the silicone I was using, you need to wait 7 days for it to cure. So each time something went wrong, it was another week gone. It just was taking very long, and I just felt like the failure rate was not something I could work with. It was like I was wasting half of the molds that I created, and silicone's not cheap. The proper way to do this is to get a vacuum chamber, which I didn't have, but towards the end of my home-based part of this journey, I finally managed to like buy a vacuum chamber. We've had it since I've moved here, but it's only recently that I got a new batch of silicone. And with the silicone I was working with, it was not an easy silicone to work with in my environment. I live in a climate that is warm and humid, and with the type of silicone I was using, it just got too solid too quickly. It's supposed to be an easy to use silicone, it's just the weather here doesn't accommodate for it. So with this new silicone, hopefully things are gonna work out. This is what we're gonna be working on today. We're gonna try and make this with our proper master object. Oh yes, I should show you. So again, sneaky peek. I got this made like in a different printing method and from a different kind of printer, and it looks so good. It's like perfectly upright. Part of the process is to also spray paint it, and I chose the yellow that matches my brand for Mornington House. So this object looks lovely. If it looks a bit dirty, it's because I was preparing it for what we're going to be working on today. So we're going to be using this and the silicone that we got now and the vacuum chamber to hopefully come up with something like this to cast our candle jars from. So let us begin. Hopefully no nightmares are coming our way. But yeah, let's get started. Okay, shall we begin? I should say hello to a slightly different setup this time. We've got a top-down view, so you can see the lovely fingerprints on my work table. We also have a slightly different camera because, well, my previous camera was not very good, was it? It struggled to autofocus so badly. Okay, you might see that our work surface today is empty, and that's because we are working with silicone. Silicone making, or silicone mold making I should say, is a messy affair. And because of that, I don't want to ruin my benchtop, so this is just some generic, I have no idea what this actually is. It's like newspaper but not. Newspaper on a day with no news is what we're gonna go with. Okay, so the key to our silicone mold making for today is silicone. Hooray! This comes in, there are many different types of silicone. The main two that we kind of think about when we're working with it is addition cure and condensation cure. So earlier I was mentioning that I was having a nightmare with my silicone. It was because I was using condensation cure, which cures based on like the relative humidity and temperatures. It's a combination of the two. The other type of silicone is actually called platinum cure, and that is what we're working with here today. The reason why I kind of didn't work with that previously was that I did try platinum cure. It was not curing, and that's one of the things with platinum cure silicone is that it can be very finicky. Depending on the object and the material that you use, as well as if there are any like foreign materials that it doesn't like, it will not cure. And uncured silicone is a mess. So I kind of avoided it. What I learned from my trial and error is that it's a good idea to test small amounts of the silicone on all of the objects that you're going to be working with. So obviously, don't work with things like a silicone spatula because it will stick. But yeah, things like your container that you're going to be using to make your silicone or mix your silicone in. So we're going to leave that here as well. The mold box that you're going to be using, in this case, this is something I made as well, 3D printed. And at first, it didn't work, but what I found was that with some of the 3D printed objects, you need to let it air for a few weeks after it's been made so that the chemicals kind of go away, and then it started working fine. And most importantly, your master object. So this is a sneak peek of the jar that we're going to be working with for our candles. This was the successful jar after many attempts. It is a SLS 3D printed object, and it's been spray painted with automotive paint. It's one of the options they gave me. And here is some footage of me testing it out so you can see. So what you do is you create a little bit of silicone, mix it together using the instructions given to you by your respective manufacturer, and apply just a small amount on all of the objects you're going to be working with. Leave it accordingly. I would lean towards the higher end of the cure time that is quoted for your silicone. And if it's successful, it will come off cleanly like you see here. I will reassure you, if you have issues with silicone, I have had many uncured cases before, so if that's what's happening to you, don't worry. I've been there. But yeah, so I've tested it with what we're going to be working with today. In theory, it should be fine, although silicone tends to surprise us, so other things you're going to be working with: weighing scale, obviously, and a stirring apparatus. I'm actually a terrible person and did not prepare any, so we're gonna have to use my DIY option. Okay, I've got a wooden stick. Ideally, you should not use something that you can actually scrape, because you want to make sure that everything is well mixed. I'm using this because I'm clearly unprepared. And okay, let's move all of this aside for now, because this is the star of the show for today, and it's what I've not worked with before. So this is the part that could go terribly wrong. May I introduce you, everyone, to the vacuum chamber pot. There's more. Okay, so this is like just the pot. I'm still gonna have to bring in... And here it is. It's a vacuum pump, it's a chamber pot. So this is what's gonna hopefully help us with minimizing bubbles or even removing bubbles entirely from our silicone situation. Right, let's actually unwrap this. I don't know why I didn't do this beforehand. Very loud. Ooh. Okay, so what's gonna happen is our mix of silicone in this bucket is gonna go in here, and then this pump is actually gonna pressurize the entire chamber, and the bubbles should, in theory, be extracted out. So that's in theory. It also comes with the valves and pipes, apparently. Ooh. Okay, do you see this? There's oil in there, that's interesting. So we've got these. What are the chances that I will... Oh, please read the operating manual carefully before ussing and reserve it properly. I will keep this nearby. But let's actually get the pump out, shall we? Oh my gosh, how does this work? Oh, we've got oil. I read something about this when I ordered it. It's supposed to be... I'm guessing that might be what it... Oh, it does smell a lot like machinery. Oh, okay, I see. So, this is actually where the oil is supposed to be. As expected, oil is oily. Right, so... You can't see anything, I'm sorry, there's not a good angle to show this, but... Oh, I see it, it's moving now, okay. That was very sudden, and I'm glad I stopped, because it hit the maximum level right when I stopped. Oil can go aside for the time being. Thank you very much for your service. Step 2. We are supposed to figure out what to do with this hose thing. My instinct is to find something that has a screw head, which is that. I'm gonna assume that it's the correct thing, because it is screwing in. Oh gosh, but this is a... It's like dancing with a snake. This now goes in here, I'm assuming? Okay. I have that now. I have this. I was about to say pot meat kettle, but we don't have a kettle. Pot meat lid though. Oh, it's not one of those lids that actually have a seam. Like, it's just a piece of, like, rubber thingy. Okay. Again, going by intuition, this looks like a screw mount thing that goes through here. Yes, okay. Moment of truth. Where is the on switch? This is gonna be important. If I do it this way, maybe I can zoom in and editing it and you can see. Although it's not gonna be good for me, right? Okay, we'll do it this way. I'm gonna look from here as well. Are we about to cause an explosion? Let's see. Are you ready? Absolutely, I mean, it's on. Nope. Okay, so that's not doing anything. Am I supposed to remove this? No, it's... I'm very confused. Oh, it's doing something! It's doing... What did I do? Okay, it's doing something. Start it again. It's vacuuming. Ooh. Okay, and then, so right now, I can't really show it. Can I show it? I guess that works. It's at the middle. The lid is definitely like stuck on. So if I do this, ooh, we got it. Okay, I understand how this works now. Which means we can start our silicone mold making. Before you actually start touching the silicone, or the pot actually, what we should have done is prep our mold box. So this is the mold box that I made. It's a 3-part system. So it has a base, and then what I do is I clamp the sides in. We get one of these binder clip things, and I clamp all 4 corners. It's not a perfect solution, but it's what I could accomplish with my current skill set. Gonna bring in some double-sided tape, and this is to secure the object. So I've had instances before where I was making the mold and the object started floating because density. To avoid that, what I do is the following. We get a piece of double-sided tape, place it like this. I hope it works with this material because this is a new material. It won't be a super secure situation, I will be honest, but enough to keep the object from floating away. Peel, peel, and then get this. Sorry, that's a bit of tape from the previous time I made stuff. And I actually managed to create a border kind of situation here. It's a very tiny difference in the height of that part of the mold box. And we, hopefully, with a bit of pressure, it's very appropriate because we are trying to be under pressure and this camera is technically looking down on me. This next step will require the use of a mask, just for safety. I will also open the windows. So sometimes when you make silicone objects, the silicone has a chance of sticking to the object. And I've had instances before where I forgot to do this step and the object just got stuck in the mold that I was making. It was terrible. As a safety, what we're gonna do is use some of these, this silicone release spray. So you apply it just onto the jar, spraying it, and it will help. But because it's a spray, we are just gonna wear a mask because I'm indoors. So, just a quick whiz around. You won't get rid of any like foreign contaminants that are on it as well. We should be good. So that's good. Now, bring in the frame and we will just clip it in. There are gaps between the base and the frame, so to be safe, and I actually would prefer to do this with masking tape, I don't have masking tape with me, is just tape around the lip. Not very glamorously, but it does what it needs to. I hope I'm not forgetting any steps. It's been a while since I've done this. So, mold box ready. What we shall do now is prepare our mix. So depending on the type of silicone you use, there will be different instructions. Some of them are like 10 to 1 in terms of the ratios of the catalyst and the actual silicone you use. Today what we're using is a it's 1 to 1, so an even quantity of both. This is where the aesthetic kind of gets ruined. Not like we have much of an aesthetic to start with, but yeah. Blue surgical gloves. My mum bought it for soap making, and that was before I got a chance to tell her that I kind of wanted a different color. We're just gonna use it until it runs out, and then we'll get slightly nicer looking gloves. But anyway, oh gosh, hello. What I'm gonna start with is, I'm gonna aim for about, let's say 550 grams, or in fact no, let's do 600 grams of silicone in total. Because it's annoying to have to add on to whatever you've made if there's not enough. Like by that point, your container's a mess, you don't have enough time to kind of rectify the situation. So if you don't have a vacuum chamber, at this part of the process, you want to be very careful about incorporating too much air. One thing that can be helpful is to pour high and slowly. So the thin stream of the material will kind of start to naturally get rid of some of the bubbles. 301 is what we ended up with. And the second part, the bit that's actually mint green, because this silicone, as you can see, it looks like melted mint chocolate ice cream. Okay, so let's pour. Now, every silicone has a suggested amount of time you can work with it before it starts solidifying. This one's actually a lot faster than some I've previously worked with, although the ones that claim to be 45 minutes long didn't work in my climate. Like it was more like 2 minutes and it started getting lumpy. This has about a 5 to 6 minute work time. That will give us some time to stir and then to degas, and then we'll have to pour pretty quickly. The good thing about this silicone versus condensation cure is that it cures pretty quickly and it doesn't shrink. Oh gosh, okay. Messy times. Oh. Okay, so this is where things get slightly nerve-wracking because time is now of the essence. Let us now start stirring. Get into all the corners. If you don't have a vacuum chamber, be more careful with how you are taking on this step because this is where the bubbles get incorporated. I need to leave some time to degas this silicone. So I'm actually gonna stir more quickly. So regardless of what color your silicone is, you wanna make sure that all streaks are gotten rid of, and it's a consistent, even color, and scrape the corners, the sides, everywhere. If you have, oh no. If you have the ability to transfer it to a different container, you can consider doing that as well. But you can see, bubbles, bubbles, and bubbles. This is why I had issues with my vacuum chamber. And I stirred slower before this. Like this is me intentionally just stirring quickly. And it's time for the vacuum chamber. Let's hope that this works. You want to make sure that the container you have has enough headroom that when because it's going to expand. So you want to make sure that it has enough headroom. I'm pretty certain this is going to be fine because like it's ginormous compared to how much silicone we have. Let's hope this works. Here we go. It doesn't work. Okay, what has gone wrong? I'm panicking. Panic in the studio. Okay, we got it. We've got some vacuuming going on. So now the key is, we don't want it to get too vacuumed. So this is where this lever comes in. You want to kind of like make sure that it's not overdoing it. And my understanding is we allow the silicone to bubble and then fold over on itself. Basically what's happening is the bubbles are folding up. It's kind of extracting all of the bubbles and it should eventually start folding, which means that, okay, I see it's starting to change a little bit. There's a lot of air in this thing. It seems to no longer be bubbling, so that should be a sign that we are there. Again, this is all new to me, so I don't know if it's actually correct. What we're gonna do is slowly release. I can see the bubbles actually. It is definitely doing something. It's not completely gone on the surface though. I might do, okay, one more time. I'm really nervous that something's gonna go wrong because again, this is my first time doing this. I don't want it to like suddenly explode. And okay. And then slowly release. Okay, that has been degassed. I still see bubbles, to be honest. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna pour high, and I'm sorry that this is not gonna be a good angle, my other camera just ran out of battery. So, and we don't have time with silicones to fix that anymore. So, small, slow stream. Okay, you can kind of see the green, right? You wanna stay on one side to allow the air to kind of form around it. Otherwise you have an air pocket wherever the silicone isn't forming, and that's not good. Okay, you may see that I stopped with some of this left over in the container, it's because, first of all, we kind of gotten past the jar already, so that was fine. But I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you can see there's a bit of streaking happening, and I didn't want to risk it. Also, it's a good idea when you first make a batch, like for a specific shape and size, have extra, and then in future work to the exact amount, because you don't want this to be underfilled and then you have to go back in and do that process there all over again when you're like rushing and you've got your hands full of silicone when things are already in a mess. Now, we leave this for about, in my case, 45 minutes, and we'll come back to see if this worked. Alrighty, it is time to find out if all of our effort has paid off. I've been through this cycle so many times before, and the chances of it going right versus wrong are so kind of even that I honestly don't know if this is gonna work. We have high hopes, but let's find out. Okay, so here is the mold. As you can see, we got a little bit of the waviness hitting the top of the mold, but it didn't touch the actual object, so my hope is that the mold itself is going to be fine. Let's first remove the packaging tape, and this is why it's important to have the packaging tape, because some of it will seep, as you can see. Yep, so this section in particular has taken quite a hit with the leaking silicone. Okay, now we remove the binder clips. Oh, I really hope this is gonna work. And let's see, I'm gonna reveal the side closer to you. Yep, okay, it's coming loose. Trying not to warp my frame, because I can use this again and again. Oh, okay, there we go. So that's one half, as you can see. It has cured. So what happened previously was that it wouldn't cure on the frame itself. Ooh, okay. It looks like a very fancy cake. Just with a bit, like bits of stuff hanging off. Okay, now for the base. It did seem to secure pretty well compared to some previous times when I tried to make molds. Okay. Oh, so there's the jar. As you can see, double side tape, we can remove that obviously. So the jar as a master object is meant to be used repeatedly. So there we go. Double side tape. Surprisingly effective in this use case. But now is the real moment. It's whether we can remove this from the mold. Oh, very clean. Okay, basically you can see it's loosening very nicely as well. Ooh, so you can see actually, like, it's pretty smooth. Okay, you can't really see well. There we go. Hopefully the camera is showing that nice and smooth. One thing I forgot to mention earlier as well is silicone has varying degrees of kind of flexibility or hardness. It's a Shore rating. So in this case, if my camera could focus, I am using a Shore rating that is lower so that I can unfold my jar out. Oh, this is lovely. One slightly minor imperfection that I see, but I hope that won't show up that much. Most tedious part is actually the inside, but we did use release spray, so. Oh, it's out! It seems like we've got a good interior as well. Genuinely no bubbles, which I'm pleasantly surprised by. There's a little bit that didn't cure. What I might do, actually, is leave the mold for a bit and see if that cures. Because again, with this sort of silicone, this does tend to happen. It's not the end of the world, especially because it's on the inside of the jar. So as for the exterior of the jar itself, we're good. Let's unroll it. Okay, you shouldn't actually unroll it that violently, but this is the mold. So when I make my actual jars, like when I cast it, the reason why I created this shape is so that I can reuse this as a structure for the mold. And that way, it hopefully will hold its shape well. Yeah, overall, I'd say pretty successful. Okay, so that was, because I'm Just gonna leave it with this angle. That was our attempt at making our very own mold, and I would say it's pretty successful. Like, I'm a bit concerned about the fact that there's a bit of cure inhibition happening inside. I'm gonna leave it for a few days and hopefully that will fix it. But in terms of the actual process, this new silicone and this jar, I would say I'm very happy with this. I definitely had more issues with the previous types of silicone I was using. Like, you saw how cleanly this came off when I was peeling it. Previously, it would get stuck, this would get stuck. I'm glad that this new silicone that we're trying has worked out. I might make another one. My plan was originally to just try and do a test cast, but because the inside is not fully cured, I'm gonna leave this for next time. In between, I might make another one of these molds so that we've got scalability in terms of making 2 jars at a time at least. Thank you for watching my first attempt at using a vacuum chamber for silicone mold making. Thank you for watching me struggle. Hope you enjoyed watching this come to life, and we'll see you next time with more from the studio. I'll actually stand up now. Goodbye.